I'm Shailja Mehta from the organization Angan. We're an Indian organization working across India on the issue of child protection. So we work with children within the juvenile justice system as well as adolescents and youth who are extremely vulnerable, again across high-risk areas and communities within urban and semi-urban India. I happened to see one boy at a traffic signal being harassed by a policeman for a reason I didn't think was valid. I couldn't see what he had done wrong. And then I saw the child being dragged away. That just got me thinking, what happens to these children? I asked a lot of questions. I tried to find out, and somebody told me there's something called a children's jail, where if a child is doing something illegal, the child is taken there. I rang up a lot of police stations. I tried to find out what's going on, and I found out there's this one institution in an area called Matunga. I went there when I was 16 without telling my parents because I didn't think they'd approve. Coincidentally, now I know that this institution was a special home for boys, so children who have been accused of committing some serious crimes. I started visiting there, and once I went there, I looked at these children. I couldn't work with them because I didn't have the authority or the expertise. I would just be able to interact with them unofficially and informally. They had committed crimes, these children, but the vulnerable backgrounds and the backstories of why they had done it, what was the need, sometimes they were forced by parents. All of that really moved me, and then some stories were so difficult to deal with that I realized that I have to come back at a much later stage in my life and get back to this. And coincidentally, a lot of things happened where Suparna, the founder, one day just called me and said she was going to work on this particular issue and would I like to join her. And then I was very surprised because I said, no, this is what I want to do. And then I quickly resigned my PR job and joined her, and then I've been doing this now for 10 years. So it's at that point really that I knew I would get back here somehow at some point in life, and I'm lucky and privileged to be doing it now for such a long time. One of the people who I studied under was P. Sainath. He's a journalist, activist working on problems of farmers in rural areas, and he's worked across many development issues, but his kind of commitment and ground level touch that he had, and then using that to communicate further to a larger audience and driving change was to me very impressive. I've been lucky enough to have opportunities to volunteer at organizations, and mostly children's organizations, while I've been growing up. And as part of that, what always struck me was the children always being in a better mood, always being stronger. When you really meet the people, the boys and the girls that we work with, which we feel are the most vulnerable, and you see them surviving, they have to be an inspiration to you. There are many times, it's a running joke that I have with a lot of people who I speak to about my work and my profession, that every Sunday I'm still sat down by my parents and they still ask me, so okay, you've been doing this for such a long time, but when are you getting a real job? Like, when are you going to start your job? People don't understand that there's an office which I go to work. They feel like this is just some volunteering that I'm doing as one of my side interests. They don't take it seriously that you can have a team of about 35 who you're thinking for, who you're planning around, because they're your messengers. They're going to be out there delivering this message to my children, to the people that we work with. So all of this is not understandable. So across, with friends, family, I was married for 4 years. So at that point, with my husband, with my in-laws, for all of them to understand this is something that is almost all consuming. It's even more than a business. So every day you have to fight it to be taken very, very seriously. I think so. It's a constant kind of thing, especially being a woman. Because if you're being a woman, that's when you're doing it for leisure. If there was sometimes a man is doing it, he's doing it as a profession. So that's the kind of fight that you have to constantly have, which makes it interesting also. This is our 10th year anniversary of the organization, so it's a time of review and introspection. So there are a lot of things that we felt that we could have done much better. There are a lot of successes that we're proud of. One is, I think, the focus that we have on the child's voice, always going back to that, always remembering that, giving them, having that sense of equality with them. That is just, that permeates through all of our work. The fact that I think we've been very grounded with that, for me, has been a huge accomplishment, because it's kind of a struggle every year to maintain that ground and field touch and presence, and have that ear to the ground and to the children. So that is a big accomplishment, and I know personally I'm always also interested in what the children have to say. A lot of the times in meetings with the top authorities at the policy level, really they stop and listen when you're quoting a child. They get it. They can sense that this is coming, it's genuine, it's real, it's what a child has said. It may again sound cheesy or bizarre, but that's really what works. And so I'm very glad that we've been able to maintain that. It's been such an enriching experience, because to begin with, it helps you realize you do have love, because that's the only way you're going to be able to do all of this and survive this. You have to have that strength of love, not just strength. So one is that I think I've realized that I do have love. It's possible, it's somewhere there. One of the things I keep saying is that you have to be mad to be doing this. There has to be a madness. Whenever I go to NGO forums, when I see other organizations working in this, there's a certain madness that I see, which I think is love, because only when you're so maddened with love can you talk about impossible things that we're all trying to do. So I have a lot of people who I speak to about our work and what we're trying to do. They look at you incredulously as if, are you mad? Are you crazy? You're doing this? You're going to be changing this? Or you're going to change this law? You're going to change the life of this girl? It's impossible. So it's when that madness translates into some action, you really feel that that madness of love has transformed into madness for change, and that kind of infects all of the work that you're doing. One is that sometimes we compromise with reality, and I understand that's something that you have to do on a daily basis to be able to survive in this world, which is influenced by culture, social attitudes, all of that. But there are some things that you have to have and keep very dear to you, where you won't compromise on that. Our children that we today take for granted, we should not be taking them for granted. We treat children as property. We say somebody else has their rights, they are the guardians, which is not true. Every child goes through something, has their own rights, feelings, entitlements. You have to be able to listen to another person, give it that open mind space, hear what they're saying, and then decide. For one, is for everybody to remember that they were a child once. So one of our efforts in a lot of the work that we do, in trainings that we do with the government, even policy makers, we have to remind them of what it was when you were a child. What did you want? What made you laugh? What made you sad? So communication, getting them to think about that, feel that, is a very important vehicle in what we're doing in terms of translating and helping people understand the value of child protection and child rights. But if there was a lot more dialogue around it, if there was a lot more even public dialogue around it, it would be great to get that understanding and global understanding and backing and support that this is an important issue and that we should pursue it. When we are able to bring about the change in the girl itself, when she can see that she is a valid instrument of change, where she is going to be able to influence society, where she has the power to be a change maker, it's then when you're going to be able to have sustainable change, you're going to have real change. That's not to say that supportive agencies working with parents, on culture, on masculinity, with boys don't have a space. They all have to come together. But a huge part of it, and a large part of it, and a very integral and important part of it, is the girls themselves. When you bring about the change in the girl, when you build her confidence, her self-esteem, when she realizes how self-resilient she is, and she's able to kind of send those ripple effects through into her community, her neighborhood, her society, even her family, that's when it's really going to bring about change that is ultimately going to become huge. The magnitude will be great. I have an absolute belief in women being superb leaders in every field. I would just change simply that everyone get what is their due, their rights and their entitlements. Once you get the respect, you get your needs met, you get the recognition, you get the understanding, compassion and love that you are supposed to get and that you've been struggling for, and you're living in a kind of equitable, just, fair and loving society, that would be all that you really need. I enjoy being surrounded by people. I feel like human capital, our population, a kind of cultural heritage that we grow up, which is always to kind of be around each other, help each other out, support each other out. Human capital is something that is a beautiful strength for a country and a nation to have. I think a very strong belief in what you're doing, conviction about why you're doing it the way you're doing it, is very important for the leader to have, because then it translates into the rest of the team. And one of the things I keep saying to the team is to just not accept a no. So I think that kind of driving faith, just to never give up, I think that is also a certain critical thinking that a leader must have. Again, it helps in all of the work that you do, also the investment that you make in the team. Teams tell you so many lovely things. There's so much learning. The children that you're working with are constantly telling you what can be done to resolve the problem that you've not been able to think of. So being flexible, open, and to have that kind of ear and to be open to voices, I think that is also very, very important. When I say that we're really committed to listening to the voice of a child, the children are also realizing that their voice is important in the way that we speak to them, we carry it forward. The children that we work with are then able to think of solutions themselves. There's a kind of building of resilience, strength and understanding that if there's a problem in my life, I can negotiate, I can work around it, I can get help and I can resolve it. I don't have to be a victim to it. So in our work within the JJ system, this has been brought about through children's committees in institutions. They've been able to resolve their own problems. I mean, there's an effort we have a long way to go. In communities, the girls and boys have realized that we are a force and we can bring about this change. I think, again, child participation and ownership of bringing about a solution to your life and the lives around you, I think that has been a huge, that is impact that I see as very concrete and very encouraging. I have a deep belief in people bringing about a change in people. There is a space for technology, there is a space for physicality, there is a space for services and infrastructure. But the change that people bring about in people is something that I think the organization deeply believes in. And I think the impact that has on any work that is being done, especially in the development field, is huge.